Welcome to the Our Forever Smiles podcast, a podcast created to support mothers of children who were born with clefts and those who love them. I'm your host, Laura Arroyo. Hello, and welcome back to the Our Forever Smiles, Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. I am your host, Laura Arroyo. Before we jump into this episode, I would like to invite you to join this community to hear conversations with other cleft moms and advocates that will help you feel supported along your journey. All I want you to do is click on the follow or subscribe button. We love your support. And thank you for subscribing. We have so much in store for you this year. As a note, we are not medical doctors, and we do not intend for you to use the information that we share here as medical advice. We are parents and advocates who love our children, and we are sharing our own personal experiences. So today, I'm really thrilled to have our next guest because I have seen her in person. I've also seen her speak in different areas. And so I know that maybe if you're listening to this, you probably also know. But we have Luci Capo Rome on the podcast today. Luci is a retired advanced practice registered nurse practitioner. She was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate, and she's an advocate for the cleft community for all ages, especially the older adults who have facial differences. She continues to plant seeds regarding cleft care and support with many professional and community organizations through writing and speaking. Welcome, Luci.
Thank you. And thank you for having me, Laura.
It's such an honor to have you on. As I shared before we started our conversation, I feel like you're such a staple in the cleft community. I feel like who in the cleft community doesn't know Luci. Yeah, and so when we first started our conversations, some people ask, like, I would love to be on the podcast, or would you? Do I have to send you a pitch, or what is it that I had to do because I want to share my story? Or, of course, people want to advocate, which I really appreciate. We need more voices. I was like, of course, sure. I would love to have you on. When did you start your advocacy journey?
Probably in the mid to early 1980s, actually. I started a support group with two other women who were cleft affected. And we did this through the University of Pittsburgh Craniofacial Center. And the support group lasted about 2 years, but it was back in the day when there wasn't any kind of media or the internet. And so what we did is we went to each other's homes and brought snacks, and we talked about all the things that you can imagine that would affect a cleft affected woman. And so it was one of the best things I ever did.
Wow. How did you meet them? Because I think people they're like, they come to like places like ClefCon, right? And they're like, sometimes it can feel pretty overwhelming as well because I've heard people say like it's the first time I had ever met, another cleft affected person or been in a room full of cleft affected people. And so I find that interesting that you were able to find two other other women, especially, during that
Yeah.
time.
Yes, we were all patients through the craniofacial clinic there at the University of Pittsburgh, where I'm from. And the social worker, or why I expressed that I wanted to do this, that I had this need because it just wasn't talked about when I was growing up and as a young adult and teenager. So one of my friends there, who was a speech pathologist, she said, well, listen, I will talk to the social worker. And so what we did is we came up with a way to approach all these women and see if they wanted to come forth. And
Mm.
so that's how it got started.
Oh, wow. And so are you still in contact with them today, or do you?
Unfortunately not, no.
Oh, okay. Wow. So did they just kind of move their separate ways, or once the group kind of just stopped
Mhm.
meeting, um you just disconnected in that way?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, because so many of us want to, like, start support groups and that type of thing, and
Mhm.
since you could I feel like maybe you were the first, right?
Well, we took notes. The name of our group was called Looking Ahead. And in fact, I still have all those notes. And I thought about
Wow.
connecting with maybe a few of the ladies, but we talked about, how families tried to hide people. I know a gal, unfortunately, she was married and her husband talked her into having an abortion because of her
Mm,
cleft. And she said after that, it was the worst thing. I thought of that baby every day. And
mm,
then there were other situations where a woman was well, she was at a date and on a date, and she was with this gentleman, and he was forcing her to have sex, and she said no, and she walked away, and he called her Snub Nose 38. Or we had
mm.
other group names called Snot Lip, or all these things that we talked about. We talked about makeup and our surgeries and our speech therapy, and like I said, anything and everything that we talk about today. But again, we just went to each other's homes, and all we had was a telephone or snail mail. Yeah, but we made it, and it was a wonderful experience.
Hi, I am so sorry to interrupt the show, but I just want to tell you about today's sponsor. Today's show sponsor is Sienna Darn Media Integrated Marketing Agency. Sienna Darn Media is more than just a marketing agency, they are your partners in progress. Their mission is simple to alleviate marketing bandwidth, allowing creative business owners to focus on what they set out to do create. Sienna Dawn Media empowers creatives to thrive without the burden of managing their own social media and marketing campaigns. Visit siennadawnmedia.com. Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's obvious that like 3 became however many, right, that
Uh,
joined this group. I guess since we do, I think so many of us want to find ways to advocate. What do you think, like, was, pulled people into that group? Like, what do you think made the group, I guess, successful? Like, what can we do for our own groups, that might, help, I guess, strengthen them or reach more people or pull people in?
I think it was because we were women and we all had our concerns about being left affected and being a woman because it's
Mm,
different. And I'll just add to that, we did have one male, and he came to a couple of our meetings, and he was a violinist for the symphony. And he grew a
mm.
mustache, and he would not sit in the front row. But after he talked to us, he sat in the front row. So that's
Wow.
a success there.
Yeah. So I guess it is part of it has to be some level of empowerment, right? Like the ability to be seen, but also
Mhm.
within that group,
Mhm.
you also have to empower so that people can feel that their feelings are validated, but also that they can go out into the world and be their best selves
Mhm.
regardless of
Mhm.
any difference.
And then in between, we were available by phone to talk with each other if something came up about our feelings. Because again, that was a time when a lot of what we were experiencing was being hidden by family members from the previous generations.
Yeah. I wanna go back just a little bit about, your childhood and just, when you were a baby and if you've had those conversations with either your parents or, family members about what it was like when you were born or when your cleft was first discovered and what the feelings were around that.
Well, it was a tough time. There was shame and there was guilt and embarrassment. There was, of course, much sadness because I was born in the 1950s, so there was very little support and there was no prenatal testing. So when I was born, they got a big surprise and they were just so upset, and there was much anxiety. And I think the big thing was the shame. The shame was pushed on me indirectly. And so it was a tough time. And the other part of that was I had a sister who was born about a year later, and she also had a bilateral cleft lip and palate and cerebral palsy. And then she passed away at age 3 when I was 4 because of respiratory issues. So it was hard for the family, and there were no special baby bottles, and so in fact, the first 3 months of my life, I was in the hospital, which would never be done today, of course. But back then, they weren't sure what to do, so that's what I did. I was in the hospital when I had my lip repair, and they kept me. In fact, initially, I was fed with a baby medicine dropper, excuse me, because of the until I could start to suckle a little bit, but it was very difficult because there was no support. There was very little activity as far as taking care of a cleft affected baby.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, like, what did they feed you with? And sometimes babies now have some issues getting the feeding down. That's one of the things that's really tough for a lot of parents. Sometimes you think, like, we're so advanced, um sometimes when you think we're so advanced, we're we're not as advanced as we'd like to think
Uh
that
huh.
we are.
Uh huh.
And so, yeah, some babies do end up in some really terrible situations, unfortunately, still. But it is wonderful that so much of it has changed and that there has been, like, a solution around that.
Mhm.
Outside of your sister, did you have any other additional siblings?
No, I did not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then my parents divorced a year after she passed.
Mm. Wow. And I guess from that time, what do you what were your parents' like actions or demeanor toward you, your care? What was their approach to it? Although I know that a lot of it was still kind of unknown.
As I got older, my mother was very supportive as far as making sure that I got to all my appointments. There was a major metropolitan hospital where I was going, and they would have a at that time it was a multidisciplinary team, and so she made sure I got there. But there was very little emotional support. So it's like we are making sure you get what you need, and we don't talk about it. It was that generation. If it's not there, you don't talk about it. So you pretend it's not there, even though it stares you in the face every day. But that's how it was. Yeah, it was like nobody talked about it. Very little.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that as well, like, could you even mention like, could you kind of brush upon it or make any kind of complaint about it? Or was it one of those things that you even just growing up in that generation know that, "Oh, I'm not supposed to talk about this?"
Yeah, I was made to feel like I was less than other people, like I wasn't the same as others. So I just went along, not having my self esteem was not the best. And so I made sure I went along with what I had to have done. And of course, I had the bullying in grade school, which was tough, and into high school. And even not only by children, but also by adults as a child, cleft affected child.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What age do you remember where you actually noticed your cleft or that other uh, that you knew something was different than other children, like you had to have surgeries and you may have been out of school more or
Mhm.
that people looked at you differently? When was the first realization that you had with that?
Probably when I was in elementary school, pretty much. You know, and it was a tough time because my parents were struggling because we lived about an hour from the hospital. And my mother learned how to drive a car, so that was good for her because we used to have to take buses and streetcars just to get to the hospital.
That must have been really challenging, I can't imagine. I'm just thinking about the wonderful advocacy work that you are doing today compared to what your childhood, story is like and all of the things that you've been through. I think that's another thing that really draws people to you is that coming from a time where you even think about the 70s, right? People are like, "Oh yeah, I was born in the 70s and it wasn't talked about much and we kinda didn't have things to work with, but then when you think about the '50s, it's like I like, you can't even really imagine what treatment was like, what people thought about cleft, and so it's such a major difference, right? Like, you could have gone any way, right? Like, you could have been depressed, which I'm sure you maybe have experienced some of that as well, but you've really chosen to turn this thing into power,
Yeah.
and I think that that's such an admirable way to approach things. Um, I know that you wrote a book, I would like, when did you decide to write this book, um, and what is it about?
I just chose to write the book probably, maybe 20 years ago, and then I would put it away and get it back out and put it away and get it back out. And I just wanted to do a little memoir to talk about my feelings and to promote the support of facial difference. And my pen name is Bella Lucia, and the name of the book is My Imperfect Beauty, Bella's Story, My Imperfect Beauty. And so I wanted to bring out that I'm beautiful. I'm imperfect, but I sure am beautiful. So,
You are.
it's, and I wrote a lot of poetry, and there's three of my poems in the book. And so I'm really proud of those poems because poetry was one of the things that got me through the rough times when I was feeling sad and anxious. And I didn't finish my surgeries till I was 51 years old. That was my final one because I was catching up. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question because, um so were you having to do things kind of as advancements were made in medicine, or, um, as suggestions were made? What was the treatment plan like? I know now, right, they have, like, a pretty standard,
Mhm.
treatment plan for
Mhm.
depending on what type of cleft you have.
Mhm.
What was your, I guess, way like, how did they go about doing your surgeries?
Well, when I was 20 years old, I was pretty much on my own, and that's when I pursued finding a provider, and that's when I went to the University of Pittsburgh Craniofacial Center, and I just pursued whatever I could get done. But the issue was uh, because of the lack of the alveolar ridge and the premaxilla, and part of my teeth were pulled out by a dentist years ago, which because there was flesh hanging, and rather than working with it like they would today, they pulled it all out. So I had to wear an obturator. I don't know if you're familiar with an obturator. I wore one from age 5 to age 38. So I wore one a long time. Yeah, for a long time. Yeah, until I had a pharyngeal flap. In fact, it was right after I graduated from my master's program. I went right into the hospital at the end of the year, and it was like my most favorite surgery because I didn't have to wear that obturator anymore after wearing it all
Mhm.
those years. Yeah, that was.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to get it, like, I'm sure with you aging and getting older
Yeah.
and your mouth changing, you would
Uh-huh.
have to go in and get it, trimmed or shaved or,
Yeah.
remade.
They remade it about
Wow.
every 3 or 4 years. Yeah. So I wore that all those years, but I got through. And one of the compliments I got from the plastic surgeon, he said, "Now you might not be able to speak as clearly because I had speech therapy from age 5 to 10." He said, "I just want to let you know." So I said, "Okay, I'm fine with that." So a few days later, I had an allergy. So I called him and he said, "Lucy," he said, "you sound better than people that have never had any kind of an issue." So I was proud of myself that I was able to continue speaking after the surgery,
Yeah.
and then I had to have the bridge work done. So I do. I had implants that failed, so now I just wear a prosthetic bridge that connects to my teeth. That's all they can do. But they said the only reason I can do it is because I have really good oral hygiene. So as I
Mm.
age, I may have to go back to a small partial, which I'm okay with that. But right now, I'm doing great with it.
And so how many surgeries have you had, if you remember?
My mother said if you add, probably around 34. But again, I'm from that generation when things were different. Like they revised my lip several times my nose and my gums, like, and I had the maxillary osteotomy where they break the maxilla and they reset it. So I've had some other, and I had my jaw wired and some other things. So.
Yeah. And so was that, I guess, was that common back then to have like several lip revisions or several
Mhm.
nose revisions?
Mhm. Now, what
Yeah.
happens is what I was told is the nose wants to go back to the way it was. They had to try
Mm.
to straighten it up. So again, there were probably more things that I'm not aware of that it wasn't talked about. So, but that's what I was told. So
And did your mother talk about, well, I guess you kind of answered this, but did you ever get a chance to talk about whether that experience for her as a mother was overwhelming or, I don't know how she personally felt about it?
she was overwhelmed. She had difficulty with it, but one of the ways that she did cope with it is she volunteered with the March of Dimes. If you're familiar with that organization, she did a lot of fundraising for that organization, and they really appreciated what she did. She did walks and other types of fundraising events because she couldn't talk to me one on one. And then finally, when I was probably in my 40s, I sat down with her one day and I said, "Do you still feel guilty about this?" And she said, "Yeah." I said, "Please don't. It's okay." That was an emotional time. Yeah, because again, it wasn't talked about that much. But she always said, well, she didn't say she was proud of me for a while, but then later over the years she did. Because my getting my education was probably one of the hallmarks for me to help me feel better about myself because I knew I could do whatever I put my mind to. And she did tell me she used to call me Lucille. She said, "Lucille, I know whatever you put your mind to, you're going to get it done," and I do get it done. And to this day,
Wow.
my husband calls me Lucy Locomotive. If I want to get a project done, here I come.
Yeah. No, that's so interesting because March of Dimes, that was the first time I had ever seen a cleft, and I was in elementary school, and I remember that they, handed out these little boxes
Mhm,
where we would fill them up with dimes, and there was a little, baby or a little boy with a cleft,
mhm.
um, and so from that moment, I had always, and I had always envisioned that this was not a problem that could happen to me or something that could happen to me or to anyone close, that it was kind of like some distant thing that we were helping some other country with. Um, and so of course, when my daughter was born and I didn't realize or know that she was gonna be born with a cleft, because she's cleft palate affected only. And, yeah, I mean, I really didn't think that something like that could happen to me. Um, and so, I think even you sharing that moment that you had with your mother of guilt, it makes me even emotional, like you telling me that. And I think so many moms, and I'm actually one of those moms that I don't really carry around a lot of guilt myself, um, because of so many professionals that I've spoken with, right? And people tell me, what the evidence says as far as we know, right? And so I take that and I do truly believe that there was nothing that I could have done. I did everything right, right? Like I did what I was supposed to do as a mom. But there are so many moms that I've spoken to that will not let it go. And they feel an immense amount of guilt and shame, even after many years.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, it's tough. We can't imagine, but we have our own way of dealing with that. Because it could be just anything. But yeah, so I was really happy that I had that conversation with her because I'm sure she was, like you said, carrying it around with her for many, many years, and she had her own issues to deal with. So she was struggling, and then there was the loss of my sister. I mean, that's huge. Losing a child,
Mm,
as you know, is just, oh, it's awful.
yeah. But what a relief to hear from you, to hear you say, like, "Don't feel guilty," you know? Like, don't feel those feelings because that that's what you kind of I feel like will help other moms, like, if their child says, "You know what? No," like, kind of let it go in the same way that you've had to kinda navigate your own journey. It's definitely parallel, I feel like, a parallel journey for sure.
Yeah, the cleft has made me a better provider. I'm very empathetic. I have a lot of qualities that I feel have come out of just having the cleft, and it makes me who I am.
Mm,
Because, like I told you, I feel like I'm attractive the way I am, and that's it.
yeah. Did you have any children
I do not.
yourself?
I never had children. No, I did not. Guess it wasn't meant to be. I don't know, but maybe in the next life. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. And so you talk about, like, having, g just putting yourself out there and, like, anything that you put your mind to, you're gonna go after. Oh, like, where does that come from, right? Because there's so many people that are struggling, like, cleft or not cleft, right? Like, cleft or no cleft, um, that struggle with confidence, that struggle with just, going after their goals. But I think that, just, from coming from where you come from, our background of, like, this cloud, around you maybe at some points in your life, how does somebody develop that
Yeah.
confidence?
One thing I can say is I was in therapy and counseling for about 10 years. And I started out with just talking about the cleft because nobody would talk to me in my family. And so I wanted to get some more answers. So that helped me um, to be in a place where I wanted to be. And I'm not sure where it came from, but I knew that I just wanted to get ahead and don't stop. But there were also those dark clouds, those old wounds that are, that come up, such as the shame or not feeling like I'm good enough. So then I start to do my other things that I do. I do um, a gratitude journal. I gratitude every night. I do 5 of them, and before I go to bed, and that has helped to ground me. But I also do yoga. I do a 50 plus tap dancing class. I do bar. I do Pilates and weightlifting. So I'm very active. So I think dance. I started dancing when I was a child, and that helped me to feel beautiful. That really helped me. And so that's why I can't give up the dancing because it's one thing that I do. And I'm happy that I can do it today um, and feel beautiful. I call it my therapy too.
Yeah. So where do you go dance?
There's a 50 plus dance class in the county where I live. And so all of us are having fun together. We have a teacher. Yeah, I enjoy it very much. Yeah. And I've done it intermittently throughout the years where I could find a class along with fitness. So, and that's helped me a lot too because obesity ran in the family. And I made a commitment to myself when I was 15 that I would try to stay as healthy and close to a normal weight as possible. And I have achieved that.
Wow.
It was a big one for me.
Yeah. That's a huge one. It's so hard.
Yes, it is. Yes, yes, it is. Especially my 2 weaknesses are chocolate and pizza.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I love chocolate. It's one of those things. This is a total side note, like, literally, so I don't know if you know this, and you may know this, but chocolate is one of the things that can, give you heartburn
Uh-huh.
or, like, give you, like, GERD, and I was, like, eating so much chocolate. Everyone's so shocked. I was eating so much chocolate that I was, like, giving myself, like, stomach issues.
Aw. That's funny.
I was my stomach was so acidic. I'm like, "I'm just eating, like, chocolate," and then the doctor's like, "Yeah, that can be a thing, like, it's not
Uh,
just hot sauce and, like." So, yeah, I'm sensitive to chocolate, but I love it.
yeah, just a little bit, huh?
Yeah. No, I think that, that commitment to, doing really hard things, is something that is, that will strengthen anything that you wanna do. Whether that is, like, signing up for a dance class or ensuring like, making sure that you're staying healthy, just stepping out of your comfort zone, I think is, like, really something that's really helpful, and that will help you build your confidence. And so so you started a women's group, and then, you've written a book. How did you get connected with Smile Train and CCAC? At what point in your journey did they reach out to you? Did you reach out to them?
Well, back in probably 2000, let's see, 2020, I was looking for groups to join, and so I came upon Smile Train and a few people. I met them through the group, and then of course on social media on Facebook. Their Smile Train is there, and of course there's a women's group. I'm sure you're aware of Cleft Coterie, the Women's Cleft Coterie. Well, I'm one of the moderators on that group, so I'm active with them, and I've met some fantastic women there. It's just been amazing. So the Smile Train, so I did connect with them, and the rest is history. I was very interested in them, and just to add, I think some of the other things that have helped with my confidence is hooking up with people who I felt supported me. Uh, that was the other part of that. I've had some wonderful women, and I've had some wonderful doctors who have supported me very much.
Yeah. I do wanna touch a little bit on the ELSA bill as well, but before I jump into that,
Mhm.
so just speaking of, like, your surgical journey and connecting
Mhm.
with other people and doctors and stuff, how have you been able to kind of navigate your, medical journey as an adult? As we know that it's sometimes harder once you get older to find not only a doctor that knows what they're doing, right? And that is, has this specialty of craniofacial care or cleft care. And that's aside from, having your insurance cover it, which is
Yeah.
a whole other battle.
Yes, I could tell you some stories about that.
Yeah.
Well, I had a really good plastic surgeon that I think was referred to me by, because when I came to Kansas City, I was hooked up with a periodontist and a prosthodontist, and then they referred me to the plastic surgeon, and he helped me get my last few surgeries done. And then I pretty much pursued on my own. I did, we moved around. When I lived in California, I had a prosthodontist there that I met through a general dentist because I knew that my bridge that I had done, let's see, the last one was done in Kansas City and then, excuse me, California because I usually lasted about 14 years. So the prosthodontist that I had in California was very good. In fact, the insurance would not cover it. And so he went to bat for me. And he actually met with their medical and dental representatives. And he said, now, this woman, at that time, I was working as a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. He said, this woman can't be walking around talking to her clients and taking care of them with a hole in her mouth. So she needs this. And so he got them to pay for it. Otherwise, I would have had to take the loan out for $27,000. And that was I had it completed in like 2017. So, so I've been
Wow.
fortunate. And then when we moved back to here to the Kansas City area, he referred me to a prosthodontist here, and I've been with him since we've been back for like 6 years, and he's fantastic. He's very, very tuned in. In fact, he's done some work overseas himself. So I'm very happy with him, and he's wonderful. He's very supportive.
Yeah. What do you recommend to adults that are seeking care and aren't able to find someone that can do their repairs or that are having like trouble with insurance, that type of thing?
Well, I mentioned the ACPA. If you go on their they have a list of clinics that they support, and some of them are only for children, but there are others who do go up to age 99 to take care of them. So
Mm.
it's just a matter
Mhm.
of finding them. But I know they're not ideally located everywhere for everyone. Luckily, there is one here in Kansas City. I don't. It's through the University of Kansas, but I don't need to go there. But it is here if I would ever need to go there. But I'm at a point now as an older adult where I just need my prosthodontist. The other one I suggest is people finding a university because they do a lot of where they do a lot of research and they have maxillofacial clinics and pursuing googling if there's cleft care a multidisciplinary group, which would be nice. And as far as the insurance coverage, a lot of people are looking at what the coding is. If it's the correct coding that will work with the insurance. And so people are still struggling with, as you know, the coverage that they're saying it's cosmetic when we know it's not. Uh, so, I mean, I know it's hard, but I know I was lucky, like with my prosthodontist. But when I first started, they said no, I started writing to my senators, my House of Representative, the insurance commissioner for my state. I wrote all those people to try to get help. I didn't get a whole lot at all. So luckily, I had him. The one before that, here in the state of Kansas, this was in 2004. Um, it would have been at that time. I think it was $14,000, and I did have to get a loan to pay for that. So it is tough, especially when with young moms and families, do I put food on the table or do I pay toward a bill, that may take me how long? I mean, I've heard stories about people having to, mortgage their home and take out huge loans. So that's why Elsa is one of my passions. We have to get this done. But that's pretty much in a nutshell. And I know that there's always new information coming up. In fact, at the Cleft Con, they're going to be talking about that again, and they're going to be doing more ELSA advocacy through Smile Train. And then I'm helping out right now. I'm a state lead for the NFED. I'm sure you're familiar with them. So I'm a state lead, and some other people from Small Train are helping to. So right now, I'm actually writing directly to the representatives for the House in both Kansas and Pennsylvania, where I'm from. So in fact, this morning, before I talked with you, I actually did 16 emails to representatives in Pennsylvania to and directly with their staff and that House of Representative member. So I'm really out there trying to get this done. And I'm now that I'm retired, I'm able to do these things. So I'm very happy about that.
Mhm. Yeah. Nothing but time.
Well, yeah, and I do other stuff too.
Yeah, no, of course. You have a busy schedule. I, you know, I I tell people as well, um the surgeries are so expensive, and my daughter had such a, I had a very challenging time, with, her cleft palate, and it was really difficult for me. So I want to validate our experience, without I don't wanna minimize what, her journey and my journey. Um, but we were on the more milder scale of this, right? She's only needed 1 surgery, and she's got ear tubes and stuff like that, and literally, I don't know how I would have been able to afford it had this been, like, 5 years ago. Like, literally what I had to pay in out-of-pocket expenses, and again, it was like, I think I had to pay out of pocket probably about $6,000, which would have been very, very difficult for me, um, So I can't imagine, these bills that these parents are getting and how they're able to do this, not having insurance cover these really medically necessary, um, procedures. So it's really challenging. So what does it mean? Because I saw these popping up as well. Because I follow all things Clef. So I saw these people making statements about being a state lead, right? Really exciting. There's a state lead for hopefully all 50 states, right? We would love that. Um but you're doing such great advocacy for Elsa. So what does that kind of look like? And what is the status of Elsa right now?
But Elsa was reintroduced last month in May. And the exciting thing about it is they made it more specific. So it's a craniofacial issue. So it would be the eyes, ears, nose, lips, jaw, and it would include speech therapy. So what their goal is by making it more specific, hopefully it'll be easier to get past. So that's the big thing about that, which is very nice. Uh, as a state lead, I'm again for Kansas, and I was born in Pennsylvania, and we didn't have anyone, so I volunteered to take on that state too. So we'll see what happens. But but it's we can write the letters. On the NFED website, they have their advocacy tool, and now as of today, we have one on Smile Train, and they're very easy to use. I mean, all you do is type in your address and your zip code, and they bring up your representatives and your senators, and there's already that template there. That all you have to add is your own story, and you can have your family, your friends, everybody. So we're really, really wanting everybody to do it. Everybody, not just us, but our families, friends, associates, the whole nine yards. And the other thing too is there's a lot of professional organizations that do uh, support Small Train, or ELSA, SWAT train, of course, being one of them, the NFED, because, this ELSA actually started in 2018. And so people have grown that are affected by seeing what happened because, 2 years ago, it did get passed in the House and then it didn't go any further into the Senate because there's so many things going on. So I highly recommend everybody get out there and do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I believe I've done, I filled mine out. I'm in North Carolina, so,
Okay.
I believe Corinne is the state lead
Yes.
for North Carolina. Really
Yeah.
exciting. I love Corinne.
Yeah.
She's one of my faves. And so, yes, it is really easy. I can vouch for that. You just go on the NFED website, right? And they have a template that's really easy to use. Now Smile Train has one as well that you can use. Is that did I hear that correctly as well?
Yes.
Yeah,
It's nice.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and they're going to be having advocacy meetings in July for our group. So it should be exciting, us getting out there and doing it not just through the websites, but also through different organizations. Like one person who she's she's the mom of a cleft affected child. She's a speech pathologist, and she was on one of my groups, and she's actually doing it with her students. She teaches, yeah. So and there's different ways to do it. There's all kinds of you can do like a run or a walk or whatever. Just ways for people to get involved and to meet up and do it. So we're hoping that we make a difference. It'd be nice to get it, yeah, because it has to be done by the end of the year.
Wow.
I
I
think,
truly believe that we will do it. We will make it
yeah,
happen.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, I love that. And then, we talked briefly before we actually started recording. You are going to Con, really
Yes,
excited
yes.
about that. Are you speaking this time or are you just attending?
I'm just attending. My husband's coming with me, and I usually volunteer if they need anything. But yeah, it's going to be fun.
Yeah, I love that. And when is that again? I believe it's
July
July
18th through the 20th.
18th. Okay, yeah. July 18th through the 20th. So if you all are able to make it to CleftCon, you can go to the Smile Train website and get connected there. And of course, we will also have like all of the links to Elsa and NFED in the show notes, so you can have that as well, and also ways to reach Luci here. I do have one last question for you, and that is, obviously you have been like so instrumental in the Cleft community. You have lots of experience, right? And you have kind of seen, you have that, like, wow, like I'm just thinking about this. You literally have seen it grow and change and evolved, and you've been there for the full Cleft journey. So you've seen it all. What do you think has been the biggest lesson that you've learned along your journey and all the things that you've seen?
To not stop loving yourself, to embrace yourself every day, and just remember who you are and how far you've come, and that it's going to continue. It never stops until you stop, but I plan to keep going.
Well, amen to that. Thank you so much, Luci, for coming on today. I
Sure.
really appreciate you. And thank you all for listening to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast with Laura Arroyo. Be sure to subscribe and submit a review of the podcast wherever you listen. I hope that you've enjoyed this audio experience. Maybe you cried a little, laughed a little, but more importantly, I hope that you feel a little peace of reassurance and even joy in your journey. Talk to you next week. All right, let me pause. Talk to you next week. Hey everyone, it's Laura here. I'm popping in today because I need your help. If Our Forever Smiles has ever helped you, if you've learned something new, felt less alone, or found hope through this podcast, then I'm asking you to help keep it going. Creating this podcast, sharing stories, and building a space where Cleft families feel seen and supported is something that I pour my heart into. But the truth is, I cannot do it alone. If we want to reach more families and provide even more resources, we need your support. So I thought of a creative way to do this. For just $2 a month, you can help ensure this podcast keeps going strong. For $5 a month, you'll unlock exclusive Moms in Real Life content, real unfiltered conversations about motherhood and career and everything in between. And then for $10 a month, you can get everything plus exclusive merch to show your support. If this podcast has helped you and you want to see it grow to help other families that are probably facing the very same challenges that you are facing right now, please consider supporting us today. Every dollar goes toward making a difference for Cleft families just like yours. And right now, we'll be using the funds to elevate the show for production. So we'll be able to add more video and just get new equipment. And as soon as this community is established and we're able to do more, we definitely plan to go beyond the scope of just this community. We want to be able to support scholarships for new craniofacial surgeons. We want to be able to support global surgeries and just really spread our efforts to continue to make an impact in our community. I just want to thank you in advance, and I'm just so grateful that you all are able to support me and support this community here. And it's definitely something that I'm really looking forward to. The link is in the show notes, and I just want to do a shameless plug here. The Moms in Real Life podcast is so cool, so candid, and yeah, it's definitely something that you'll want to check out. Thank you all again.